The information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for clinical mental health treatment. If you or someone you know is experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988 or head to your nearest emergency room.
Welcome to the Black People Die by Suicide 2 podcast, where we discuss all things mental health with an emphasis on suicide within the Black community. I am your co-host, T-Kea, and Jordan has taken time away to refill her cup. Y'all know that we practice what we preach over here. And so I have a wonderful special guest that I'm about to introduce in a second. But before we get into this topic and introduce our guest, at the beginning of each episode, before we get started, we always do our wellness check and rate our psychological fortitude, which is a term coined by the esteemed and the amazing Dr. Rita Walker. And basically, our psychological fortitude, or PF, is our ability to be able to be self-aware and to check in with ourselves. So how we're doing mentally, emotionally, psychologically. 0 being, I don't want to move on with life. It's too much for me. And a 10 being, I am doing great. Nothing can break my spirit. So for me, if I had to rate my psychological fortitude today, I would give myself, I'm going to say about a 7.5 today. Dr. Walker says we should be at an 8. But as far as, I guess, what I'm feeling, it's more so a little bit of stress related to work. But I feel like what's helping is who I'm surrounding myself with. So now I'm going to introduce somebody who's very special to me, the amazing Raymond Baynard, my fellow Jerseyan.
Let's go. Jersey in the
who is a graduate from SUNY Purchase with the BFA in dance and is a multifaceted artist, excelling in dance and choreography. He has done a lot, but we're not going to get into everything that he has done. His credits include Broadway, The Lion King and MJ the Musical, and Hamilton, both the national tour and on Broadway. And he's currently in The Great Gatsby. And Raymond has worked globally as a backup dancer for Mariah Carey and has been featured on, I mentioned national tours. His dedication to his craft continues to inspire and push boundaries of artistic expression. And also Raymond's fitness journey breaks the barrier norms of how dancers should look, challenging traditional standards and inspiring other dancers to embrace their unique physique. So, Ray, how are you doing? How are you doing? And you got to give your PF, which is fortitude 0 to 10. So how are you feeling?
I would say I'm about a 7.5, 8. I feel pretty good.
Okay.
Just different, stresses of life, but nothing that I can't handle right now. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. And I feel like because I'm working a lot, that also helps me kind of maintain my, mental state of having a routine. So yeah, I feel pretty good.
Well, that's good. So on today, I'm excited to talk about this topic. And Raymond is a very long time friend. Like we're going to talk a little bit about
20 years. Almost 20 years.
That's so crazy, right?
That's very crazy to say. Very crazy.
That is wild. But people don't have friends that long, I feel like, anymore. So I'm excited to talk about that as well. So today we're going to discuss mental health in the entertainment industry and talk about our friendship. According to Harbor Psychiatry and Mental Health, individuals who work in the entertainment industry, such as actors, musicians, stage productions, roadies, those whether in front or behind the scenes, are approximately 3 times more likely to struggle with mental health challenges, and there is a disproportionate struggle with substance use in this population. And also, according to several studies,
Yeah.
people in the performing arts are twice as likely to experience depression as the general population. So we'll get into that.
Mm,
But before we get into
so
that,
real.
let's just talk a little bit about like our friendship, like about our
Yeah.
childhood, how we first met, like all that stuff. I'm gonna let you tell the story because I want to
Okay.
hear your perspective of this.
Well, I'll start just a little bit about. I've always known what I wanted to do since I was a kid. I've always known that I wanted to be in the arts, primarily with dance. And so, my mom would always keep me in activities through the summer. And I think that's how we stumbled across African Glow, but she used to do a bunch of, different summer theater programs and dance intensives that she would teach at. So because I was her son, I got to tag along, and I don't know exactly how we stumbled across African Globe. For those who don't know, African Globe was a theater organization in New Jersey, where we're from, and they met in Newark, and they would put together these program or shows throughout the year, but during the summer they would do like these summer programs that kids in the area could come and participate in. But I did a show with them during the spring. I don't know what year it was. It was called Sermon on the Mount, and I loved it so much I wanted to do their program again. And so they were like, hey, so there's a summer thing that you should audition for. I did it that year and I loved it. And I came back the next year, and that's when we met. I want to say we were maybe like 14 or 15.
15. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. The
I
rest is
know,
history
right?
because, yeah, I mean, we met there and then we just clicked instantly, and we're friends for all the years. It's
Yes,
crazy.
it was me, you, and Lawrence, like the little three
Ah,
musketeers.
and and I met Lawrence Dandridge. For those of you who don't know, he's incredible, talented artist from New Jersey as well. But I met him at Sermon on the Mount. The first thing that I did there, that's where I met him.
Oh,
We got
okay,
really
okay.
close, yeah, as kids. And then yeah, yeah, each year.
It's so amazing to think about how, and I know we'll kind of get into this a little bit. Um, Actually, you know what? Let me not get ahead of myself. Before I even get into that, even us just talking about our friendship dynamics, like we
Mm,
had, of course, like when we were younger, and of course, hung out, stayed in contact, talked all of the time, all of that stuff. But then, of course, we kind of went our separate ways. Like you went to college in New York, and I
college,
was
of
in,
course.
in DC. But like,
HU.
right, you know. So we did have like a like time apart, but there were still
Right,
moments that we kept in touch. And then of course life would have life, always life. And so we may have seasons
right,
where we may not talk as much, but I still
right.
feel like our friendship still sustained. It wasn't
Yes,
like when we would have a
yes,
break or something for whatever is going on in life. What I feel
right.
like when we come back together, we just pick up where we
Pick
left
up
off. It's
exactly.
it's like no love lost or anything like that.
Yes. Yeah, and that is so important because I feel like a lot of the time now it's consistency is I think the idea of consistency is a little warped now, especially because of social media, being in the age of social media, everyone has access. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you think that, oh my gosh, if I don't talk to this person all the time, which of course would be ideal, but it's not realistic, right? With life going
Mm-hmm.
on, it is so amazing to have a space where you can just pick up where you left off with a friend and check in. And you already know my love language. My love language is audio messages. We will be sending audio messages, and it'll be like 3 to 5 minute long messages, and I'm just going throughout my day, just like listening to the messages when we get a chance, and that's so special to me. So I'm really grateful for that in our friendship.
And also, let's share. I'm like, should I go first or should I let you go in terms of what do we feel like I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but what do we feel like we gain from our friendship and what do we love
Ah,
most about each other? Should I go first?
sure. I mean, I tell you this all the time, so I already know what I'm going to say.
I think one of the things, your ability to not just your talent, because we
No.
already know, like if y'all haven't seen Ray perform, then I don't know, y'all missing out. But I am inspired by your ability to be able to have this goal or this dream and being able to I'm always inspired by stories like that where people say this is what I
Wow.
want out of my life. I'm going to work for it.
Yeah.
And to do it in an industry that is very unpredictable and
Yes.
not knowing when your next gig is going to come.
Right.
Sometimes a lot of people in the entertainment industry operate on faith and a prayer a lot
Yeah.
of times,
You kind of have to.
and so like
Have
your
to.
ability to be able to do that is inspiring to me because I tell myself like even though we're in separate industries, like still if you can
It's
do it, like
still.
I can
Yeah.
do it, especially in the sense of I am, yes, in mental health, but I do consider
Yes.
myself to be pretty creative. And so still being able to take something or create something from scratch and
Yes.
still and then be consistent in that has been also inspiring to me. And I know we talk all the time like about
All the
a
time.
whole bunch of stuff, but that definitely inspires me. And then two, obviously we're human, so we have bad days, right? But
Yes.
every time I'm around you, like your spirit always lifts me up. We always have a good
Oh,
time. I love
yes.
coming to your house because it's like the sanctuary for me.
I
Like
know.
I'm at peace when I'm staying there.
I
But
love
it's
it.
something, just the spirit that you carry when we're around.
Yeah.
I always feel like a sense of peace and at home. So I
Oh,
truly enjoy our time that we spend together.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Because honestly, I feel like kind of touching on what you said first about how I have been achieving certain goals. Your turnaround game, because that's the thing that I love most about you and our friendship is how you inspire me to have a quick turnaround. Like you say you're gonna do something and you do it, not just like next year or in a couple years. Like I'm somebody I like to marinate a little bit. I I take my time. You know what I mean? When I get there, it takes me time just to get there because I want to develop. I want to make sure I'm doing the things that but you go for it and you make sure you succeed. I think your determination and your will to succeed is like insane. You've always, since we were kids, you've always turned lemons into lemonade. Like the book you wrote. How old were you? That was in college. Nah, am I
No,
wrong?
it was after college. I
Okay,
mean,
right
no,
after
but
college.
it was still, I still self-published it. I was like, well, I do want to get a publishing deal, and that is the plan. But until that happens, I'm like, let me try to figure out this self-publishing thing. Like, I'm not going to wait for a book deal. But
You see what I'm
anyway.
saying? It's that is what inspires me so much because I struggle with perfectionism, and so it's easy for me to be like, it has to be this way, it has to be this way. No, you just gotta go for it, and you gotta trust and believe that God's gonna pave that way. And you have been an example of that. So since we were kids, we're talking about consistency, and like you said, we always have a good time. It's so nice to get together with a friend, and it doesn't matter where we are in life. We could just pick up where we left off. Even if I'm like, yeah, this is a crazy moment, I'm sending my audio message to you, and vice versa. I love that we do that for each other. Yeah.
Yes, like it's so crazy to think that like whenever wait, yes. So this year is, I think we mentioned, you said almost 20. So I think this year is 19, right? I feel like
Dang.
we
Yeah.
right. Yes, that is wild. Yeah, we were 14 when we met, now that I think about it. So
Woo!
well, no, this year's 20 then, right? Cuz we're both
It'll be coming
turning
out. Yeah, I'm about to turn. Yeah, we're about to turn 34.
right. So that's it. We got to we going to have to celebrate. I
We
don't know
got to
what we're
do
going
something.
to
Go on
do.
vacation. Let's go somewhere. Plan a trip.
I'm always down for
Ah,
a trip.
okay. Love that.
So now we'll kind of share a little bit and kind of transition into talking more about the industry and more a little bit about your journey.
Yep.
And since of course this is a mental health podcast, so of course we're talking about mental health, and it
Yep.
is something that's super important overall, but I feel like
Yeah.
definitely in your industry.
Yeah.
So given what was shared about the statistics, about individuals in the entertainment industry struggling 3 times more likely with their mental health. Can you
Wow.
share some of your perceived or either what you observe in terms of how things
Mm,
are, in terms of what that actually looks like? Because we can hear it,
yeah.
but actually somebody who's actually in the industry.
Right. I think it's just, again, being in the age of social media, there's an extreme amount of pressure that is put on an individual to be successful in any form, whether that's pressure that they're getting from themselves or social media or people who are supporters. You feel that pressure to succeed. And so, with that, you're also balancing life. You're trying to navigate your life. Things happen, and being in this industry, like you said, it's so uncertain. There's so many things that are out of your control, and then to add the pressure to that. So it makes sense as to why it is very difficult for people to manage mentally and manage their mental health while they try to achieve their goals and dreams.
Are there any specific or unique pressures that you feel like that you can speak to outside of? I know we talked about things being unpredictable,
Yeah,
the pressure. You also spoke to your own experiences about perfectionism, but even
true.
how that plays a role into your mental health, because then it feels like I can't get out of my head because I feel like this needs to be perfect.
And
So
whew,
so even your
the
experience, but also
struggle.
what you see overall in your day to
Yeah,
day.
it really is that for me. I think getting out of my head has probably been one of the hardest things, especially as I've gotten older. I think the more that you gain in terms of wisdom and knowledge, you start to see things differently. And it can either be a crippling thing or it can be something that propels you forward. And I think it is the challenge for me has been surrounding myself with the right things, whether that's not just people who are going to help me to get out of my head and allow myself to see, yo, you got something here. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to share it and to
Mm-hmm.
achieve that goal. But that's also books. That's also getting into therapy. That's also finding
Mm-hmm.
other resources to maintain and keep your sanity while you are trying to, manage the uncertainty of how long you're going to get a job. And when you're working a lot, when do I find time to do the things that I want to do? That's another thing as well. But that pressure of constantly being successful is like the hardest. That's the thing I've been trying to balance this entire time in my career. Not being too much of a perfectionist, also to step out and do things outside of a show. Yeah.
You said, you said so much. I was thinking about, even when you said it doesn't have to be perfect, because even before you was like, I like to let things marinate, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
the thing is, while you're working on the thing, like you can still be developing, like in terms of practical experience
Yes.
versus letting it kind of sit there, because there are a lot of things that I do that I figure it out along the way. I don't know all the things. Like
Yeah.
Black people die by suicide too. I am figuring
Wow.
out how to run a nonprofit in the midst, like it's
Wow.
different working for one opposed to starting one.
Yeah, that's
And
yours.
so I didn't know. I
Wow.
just it's like I'm like, we gonna have to figure it
We're
out
gonna
along the
figure it out
way.
as we go.
Like they said, build the plane as you're flying. That's kind of
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
realized how perfectionism would prevent me or
Yeah.
prolong me from doing something. And so I was like, okay, T-Kea. And that's not an easy thing. That's like hard to
To
overcome, you know?
manage. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I also wanted you to even, when you talked about going back to, you were like trying to maintain the things that you want to do outside of work. So when you are,
Hmm.
performing, you are doing a lot of shows on Broadway, or even sometimes
Yeah.
when you're traveling to,
Right.
perform,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
what are those things when things get really busy for you? Like when you were doing one show, I think you were doing like 8 shows a week. What did you
Still.
do to manage your mental health? How did, even being honest about how some of your relationships overall can tend to sometimes suffer because you're trying to literally, you're performing 8 shows a week. Like, that is so taxing. And then even the
Mhm.
moments where the seasons where you were on tour.
Right. And it's
So
crazy.
what did that look like?
Um, well, that's kind of been my life for like the past decade. I've been performing 8 shows a week. And so each season of my life over this decade has looked very different. I think touring and doing 8 shows a week, you're at even though it's a lot of fun, I think that's the other thing too. It's something that you dreamed of doing, right? Performing on stage is what I dreamed of doing. And getting to do it every day like this, the younger me would be pinching himself, right? But now you have to also consider that there's life outside of this show. Um, and when you do 8 shows a week, you start to kind of eat, sleep, and breathe the show, especially if it's a successful show, if you're fortunate enough to do a successful show. So managing while doing 8 shows a week is harder, but it's in the same way that you had to figure out how to manage and run a company and a nonprofit as you're doing it. It's something that you're not really taught to do when you're in school and you're learning about, getting a job and what that would look like. It's very hard for people to explain what you'll need to do to manage while you're doing 8 shows a week. You literally learn as you go. And so what my life looked like on tour doing 8 shows a week to sustain my mental health when I was in my 20s looks very different than what it
Mm,
needs to be now. The challenge is finding that balance. It's figuring out what you need because you you feel like if I sit down too much, if I take a day for myself, I might be missing out on other opportunities. You don't know who's coming to the show. You also you just never know what you could be missing out on, but you also don't know when to stop because you're like, if I'm
mm,
sitting down, maybe I'm being lazy. It's like, no, you have to factor in all that hard work. You have to factor in the playtime as well. And that is been the hardest thing to balance. But as I've gotten older and adjusted to this 8 show a week schedule, I've found a rhythm. And even still, in those off times where it's hard for me to find time to spend with my family. I mean, my family lives a couple hours away from me right now, and I haven't seen them in a while. All of a sudden, you look up and life has moved 2 months. The fact that we're about to be in August of 2024 is wild to me. So, trying to balance all of that, 8 shows a week, and spend time with your family while life is moving quick. You know, you thank God for technology, so that I can stay in touch with my friends that way. But
mhm.
yeah, it's a constant struggle of finding that balance.
And that's something I feel like people tend to romanticize or glamorize
Hmm.
when you're talking about working in the industry,
Yeah.
not really knowing I still have to figure out how to manage my life, like you said, outside of this. I know there were seasons where we didn't really talk, that much,
Right.
but we found a way, we just kind of come back around when we come back around.
And pick back up. Yeah. Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of what you said when it came down to substance use, it's so normal. And we've seen it where it's a, allowed incredible artists to kind of run their course or leave earlier than planned because again that constant pressure of like go 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 go, you don't know what you're going to miss out on, you don't know what's next, you have to keep going. And then you're also again trying to find a balance of living your life outside of achieving that goal of running that business it becomes a lot. And then you're still required to be on, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like it's different. I know some people who just struggle with balancing life as stagehands, people who we meet, the crew backstage who work behind the scenes, and they still have a lot to carry. So for somebody who's in the spotlight who has to be on, I can't even imagine what some of the great artists that we know, like Beyonce, like that kind of pressure is very difficult to manage. Whether you're putting that again, whether you're putting that pressure on yourself or you're getting that pressure from just looking at social media and the age that we're in, or supporters or people, family in your lives who are telling you you need to be doing a certain thing. That constant pressure of like I gotta one up myself, but I need help. I need to be on, and I'm trying to balance this. It's easy to lean into substance use, and it's not obviously the always the safest thing for people to do. But yeah, you can understand why it's such a challenge for a lot of artists.
Yeah, and when you were talking, it made me think about FOMO, fear of missing out, because you're saying I got to do this in that mindset of realizing, even for myself, I have to
Mm,
constantly have this self-talk saying what is
yeah,
for me is not going to pass me, and every opportunity that is for me, or that is
it's
offered
for
to me
you.
rather, I don't always have to take. So I have to kind of, sometimes when I'm being offered opportunities, I have to go through a checklist.
Yeah,
Because some opportunities, they may not be the best fit in general, or the timing may be off.
I see.
And so
Yeah,
kind of thinking, when you're talking
that's real.
about what God has for me is for me, or whatever is supposed to be for me, don't kind of miss me. But that's something that we have to kind of be sure about within ourselves, you know?
I have to share this story because even when I think of it, I've let it go. I'm going to talk about managing and mental health. I've let this go. But I was doing MJ the musical, and I had a really my body went through a lot doing that show. Even though it was a fun and incredible show, it's still going strong after 2 years of opening, almost 3 years. But I went through so much that there were times where I had to tap out. And for me, I kind of built. I prided myself on coming to work. You know what I mean? Being able to get through a 8 show a week schedule. But that changes, right? As you get older, as the show may be more demanding on your body. So for me, I had to tap out a lot, right? And so it was hard for me to decide when I was going to take a vacation at MJ. But I did. I finally sat down, I set the week, and I really just did a staycation. I was in the area, but I just wanted, and I went away for a couple of days and then I came back home. But I set the date. It was in August, and guess who came the week that I was away?
Beyonce.
Beyonce Knowles, female pop vocalist.
Beyonce, for real?
Beyonce came to the show when I was on vacation. Now, obviously, I was still in the area, so I went to the theater and I saw her. She didn't come back to meet us or anything, but I saw her there. But who knows the way that I was featured in that show? Who knows
Right.
what could have happened if she would have saw me? Now, obviously, you gotta. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do
Mm-hmm.
about it. But that is something that stays in my mind, even
Mm-hmm.
as I do an 8 show a week schedule. It's like, well, you never know what opportunities could come. So coming in to do 8 shows a week, you're like, I don't want to miss. Now I don't know if Beyonce will come to Great Gatsby. That'd be epic. But that was something that I had to manage. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It's crazy.
So I want to ask you. I want to challenge this, because I get that, because I can imagine how I probably would have felt too.
I was
But
heartbroken.
also asking yourself to do that at what expense, though?
mm,
To what expense?
yeah, that is, and it's hard because again, there are other things that factor in. I remember my last 2 weeks at MJ specifically. I had a strained hamstring, right? And so I remember hobbling off the stage while I was doing the performances. And one of my coworkers, she's like, you should probably like take a minute, take a beat. I was like, I have a few weeks left on my contract with the show. And I had a bunch of friends and family that were telling me that they were coming to the show on specific dates and things like that. When am I not going to do it?
Mm-mm.
What are you gonna do? So that I had to do my best to manage and get to a place mentally where I was able to still push through the pain and do it without harming myself. And once I left the show, I want to say weeks after, I was able to recover just fine. But again, my body was reaching its limit, and I had no choice but to come in and to push myself in that way. I made it out okay. I'm fine now, but in that moment, it was a lot of work, and that's the thing about being a performing artist that uh, it takes a lot of strength and surrounding yourself with everything you need, whether that's people, a therapist, um, finding a balance, a life outside of the show, because you feel that pressure, and you're like, I have to do it. You know, it's I have to finish. I have to see it through.
Yeah, but that's something you told yourself. You was like, I have to, like, I kind of have
I have
to,
to.
because you're like, oh, people are coming to the show, like they're coming because they want to see me, you know.
Yeah.
So I could understand that pressure, but it
Yeah.
also makes me think about, like you said, I recovered fine. But at what point do we tell ourselves, like, okay, when our body starts giving us early warning signs, like,
Signs.
well, we need to tap out. There are moments we have to tap out and not push through. So how do you even determine when to push through and when to tap out?
I feel like now God is God, he allows certain things to happen, like minor things that are setbacks that make me have no choice. Because of the industry, there's a part of me that will kind of push through. I had like a stomach bug months ago, and I still didn't fully recover from it, and I was still at work. And it was crazy because even the most simple parts of it was so difficult for me. And I think God understood, okay, Raymond, you're gonna be a little hard headed, aren't you? I remember one of these last shows that I did in the fall. It was a long work week, and at the end of that work week, I was helping someone off of a table. A very simple thing. My back went out. Your boy was down for 2 weeks. Ah, 2 weeks. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't push through if I tried. I
Right.
think that was the start of God doing things where it's like, mm-mm. I had like I had to a little while ago. I had to go to the ER. I had like some type of issue in my throat. I had like an allergic reaction, and it just was like a bunch of swelling. And I had to stay there for a couple of days. I had no choice. I couldn't still just go to work tomorrow, even though I was on a liquid diet. How are you going to do something physical on a
On a
liquid
liquid.
diet?
Right.
I feel like God has been trying to help me in that regard of like, I'm going to give you minor setbacks that are only going to give you a few days, but you need to sit down. I feel like that's what he's been doing to help me lately.
Because the thing is, when we're talking about self-care and stuff,
Yeah,
when people
yeah.
say like I don't have time for self-care, it's like we can't afford not to practice self-care, because the thing is, if we don't
Hmm.
take the time to do it, then our bodies will force us to do it, and it's going to take longer to recover
Right.
versus practicing it consistently, so then
Yes.
that way we won't be down and out for an extended period of time.
And that's another thing too. It's learning how to practice self-care throughout your daily life,
Right.
right? And I think you know all about that. I love when we talk and you tell me you're like, I'll write out my plan. I got my morning routine. I'm up at 5. I'm doing the gym. You have your routine of self-care outside of your hectic demands at work or whatever the case
Mhm.
is. And because my job is physical, I'm now learning how important it is for me to
Mhm.
utilize even those short hours before I go to the theater of doing what I need to do because I work at night. In a perfect world, I would love to be up at 5 in the morning getting a workout in, but I just did 7 shows and then 2 shows that night before. Why are you trying to get up and push your body and you
Mhm.
still got to do more? This is a marathon for you, bro. So
Mhm.
your mornings are going to look very different. You might have to let
Right.
yourself sleep in a little bit more. You know what I
Right.
mean? Let yourself sleep in a little bit more. And then you say, okay, how does my body feel? Okay, let me get my good nutrients. I have these drops. You already know about my
I
drops
know. A
because
whole
I
slew of
haven't
them.
I haven't gotten sick in over a year because of this dandelion rouge and blue vervain and chlorophyll and all those other drops that I take. That's a way that I get to practice my self care throughout the week. Going to the
Mm-hmm.
gym. Okay, I want to go to the gym. It's not even about me trying to be bigger, because that's another thing. Dancers are not really required to be huge, just for the sake of the line and flexibility. But now it's kind of become a lifestyle for me. It really is something that gives me peace of mind when I go to the gym, or when I get to lock in and focus on myself and focus on little details that I can change and manipulate on my body. That is restorative for me. And now I can go to work and pour and give out to the audience. So I really do think it's important for me to practice self care throughout the week.
Hey, sneakerheads and brunch lovers. This one's for you. Get ready for the Kickback Brunch fundraiser in Baltimore, hosted by Black People Die by Suicide 2 on September 28th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Y'all, we're stepping up to save lives for National Suicide Prevention Month. Join us at the Empanada Lady, delicious food, music by DJ Tony, raffles, giveaways, and a mission that matters, raising funds for Black suicide prevention. Tickets are limited and need to be purchased by September 21st, so bring your sneaker A game, whether you're here to advocate or just have fun. Don't miss out. Secure your spot at blackpeoplediebysuicide2.org. Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what we always try to encourage people to think about. And
Yeah.
when you were talking about self care, you talked about resting. We talked about
Hmm.
removing certain pressures from ourselves, um, and even getting you to actually even ask you this question, not necessarily self care related, but
Hmm.
and I know you've been doing it for a very, very long time. So I'm interested in knowing your answer, though. um,
What?
how does it feel? Because this is probably something people might be interested in knowing. Like people, there's think about people who, which this makes me so sad, and I'm just even getting emotional thinking about this. But think
Mhm.
about people who die with dreams that were unfulfilled.
Hmm.
To sit in that, and for you, how does it feel to be living part of your dream that you've worked hard
Hmm.
for? Granted, there are other things that you still are working on and that you intend
Of
to
course.
do, but there is a this is a part of your dream that you are currently fulfilling. So what
Yeah.
aspects like of your journey stand out to you?
Ah, wow. For one, thank you for sharing that. That kind of hit in a different way. But I've been fortunate enough. I feel like God will give me little um, reminders throughout my week at random moments. I remember one time I was doing Hamilton. We're sitting on the stairs during this one moment of the show in the second act, and I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is mm, this is my life." I remember even earlier this week, if I'm being honest, you don't always feel like performing because you do
Mm-hmm.
it all the time. It's just kind of like a normal thing for you, that even though you love to do it, you can't help but give it. Even if you get there and you're like, I don't feel like it. Boom! As soon as those lights come on, I'm about to eat this thing up regardless. But there's little things that I've been giving myself, like, Raymond, I'll take a deep breath and I'll say to myself, just put one foot in front of the other. Just once you get to the theater, you'll be fine. And there's a moment, maybe a few minutes before the curtain goes up, where, people are warming up and getting ready for their show. I'm usually the only one on stage, because they're just setting up for the opening of the show. And so I was standing on stage, I'm like going through what I'm doing, I'm warming up, and I'm looking around and I'm like, this is your office, bro. Like, I'm looking at the lights. I'm looking at the fact that I'm about to perform. I'm about to do exactly what I love to do. And so I'm grateful when God gives me those reminders of, like, you're in that dream. So let's get it. Let's have a good time. It doesn't, I don't take that lightly. I try not to forget that, even when I don't feel like it. I'll say to myself, yeah, I may be a little tired today, but I got this. I have it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is I'm so grateful to be living out a part of my dream, for real.
And I'm so glad there was something that really stood out to me that you said. You said, even though there are moments that I don't feel like doing it, because I want us to debunk this saying where they say, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, or do what you love and you won't get tired, or whatever, those kind of
Mm-hmm.
cliche sayings. And whoever said that, they was lying,
They
okay?
were lying.
Because I can imagine, because if you remember recently when I was at your house, I asked you, I said, Ray, like, do you get tired? Because in my when I
Yeah,
saw
it's funny.
when I see the show, it's my first time seeing it, and it's just like, oh my god, this is great. And but
Right.
then imagine doing it like day in and day out. It's like, I gotta do this again.
It's that. It's that. It's that. Were you finished? I don't know if you
I
finished.
just was gonna say I was just gonna say that like dualities is a thing, and two things can be true at the same time. You are grateful, but you're like, I'm grateful, but I'm also exhausted.
Yeah, I would love to sit down, but I also am grateful that I'm employed. A lot of shows sometimes they have a short lifespan,
Mm-hmm.
and that's out of your control as well. So I try to remember that and remember that gratitude as I perform. But a lot of the time, I would love to go on somebody's beach. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to just lay in this bed for a few hours, but yeah, those things can totally coexist, and I think it takes a bit of training mentally to get yourself to a point where you can manage that. And you're like, you know what? I think what helps me is to think about it like, yo, you got this. There's a movie that I think of that Gabrielle Union did, and she was like, guys, just pretend we're back at the gym doing our thing. We've done this 100 times. And I love that because I'm like, if I think about it that way, it allows me to kind of push past that feeling of I don't feel like it today. You know?
And I feel like also with being in the entertainment industry,
Hmm.
and I know it's hard on one's mental health, but I of course know you've had your challenges,
Yeah.
but and this is maybe from the outside looking in, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you've done a relatively like good, like decent job with like managing your mental health, in the sense that I hear a lot of what you share is positive self-talk.
Oh,
You have to be careful about how you talk to yourself, because
yeah.
how we talk to ourselves influences how we feel, and that also influences our behaviors.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you constantly telling yourself like, I got this, sometimes it's to to your demise, because you like, I'm gonna push through my body. There are
You're
moments where it's
like,
like, nah, I don't need to push through. I need to sit
I need a
down.
minute. I need a minute.
But I think overall, like, how you speak to yourself is so important, and you constantly
Mm,
telling yourself that in those moments, like, yeah, I'm tired. You could be like, I'm tired of doing this show. You like, but I'm, yes, I'm grateful, but it's okay to acknowledge and be, acknowledge it and be
honest.
honest, and it's about what it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, of course we all have areas of improvement, but I do feel
Of
like
course.
you constantly giving yourself that positive self-talk is so needed. And I'm
Oh,
wondering if you feel like that is part of what has been helping you to sustain.
yeah. I feel like for me, I've learned that if I don't put too much pressure on myself, I'm much more likely to go further than if I tell myself, you better do this right now. Right? Like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was finishing out another contract with a show on tour, and we had about 3 months left, and we were in DC. And I remember looking at that schedule. It was 8 shows through the last 3 months, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing every single show every week. I don't know. And I stopped myself and I said, you know what? Just do what you can. Do what you can. And then see what happens. I didn't miss a show. Now, granted, they gave us swing outs, which I'm appreciative of. It's being a part of organizations that do see the value in giving you rests. I appreciate very much. So
Is that what
being
a swing out is for people who don't know?
It is. A swing out is, if you're an on-stage cast member, which most times I usually am, they'll have swings. So people that stand by just in case, say I'm on vacation or I'm tired, I call out for the day, they usually jump in. But they have swing outs where they will give you a scheduled day and they'll say, okay, so instead of doing two shows on Saturday, we'll take you out of the matinee and Bobby will go on for you. And so you can either watch the show, you have to stay in the theater, you still have to be in the theater, but you don't have to do the show. Oh, that's so nice because what that did for my mental was like, all you have to do is get through to next week. You get your swing out on Thursday, and then you can do it. And I was surprised that just saying to myself, do what you can, allowed me to get through the entire 3 months, and I didn't miss a day. I was really, and I've learned. I was like, this is how I am going to have to succeed in this business. Like that's how I'm going to have longevity and not feel like I'm going to burn out. Because if I put so much stress on myself, which is easy for me to do, I mean, I work in Times Square for crying out loud, so it's the most overstimulated it's area in the world. And then I'm from New Jersey, so New York has always kind of been my background. So anxiety is kind of it's a normal occurrence, a daily thing. And so trying to unlearn that and train yourself to take a minute. My music in my ear as I walk to work is what saves me. People will be stopping in the middle of the sidewalk. I'm thinking, oh, if I'm maybe running behind because of the buses or traffic or whatever the case is, it can add to your anxiety. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do my best once I get there. And to remember, yo, you got this. You've been doing this all this time. So it's teaching myself to trust myself in a way that I haven't before. Like, you got this. And if you mess up, if you have a moment where you're like, oh, I wasn't quite on my leg, I still ate that. Because that's one thing, and you know me, I love saying this. You have to I don't think there's anything wrong with nobody's perfect, right? I'm not saying that this makes somebody perfect, but you should acknowledge when you did something well. Because yeah,
Right.
I one thing about my friends and my close friends, I'm gonna tell you if you ate that. That was fire. You killed that. How many times when you were here, whether it is you're talking about your book or the things that you're doing, or even this, putting this together, I'm like, friend, you are doing this thing. You have to speak. I have to speak that way to myself too. If I have a moment where I was like, that was good work. That was good work, man. Good work, champ. I'll say that to my, as cheesy as that sounds, I will say it to myself, even if I'm a little, dragging a little slower to get ready for the day. I'm like, all right, champ, you got to get up. It's little things like that that kind of keep me going. And I think having the mother that I had, battling, cancer and things like that, she still pushed through. I don't know how she did that, battling cancer for 11 years. And so I feel like that resilience is kind of a part of me now because of her,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
you
Man, I
know?
miss your mom. She was
Yo,
like the
you
most
already, it's like your
awesome
kid.
person.
You're
Oh
like her kid
man.
too, I
I
miss her so
know.
much.
Man, that was Aunt
Yeah.
Karen, man. Like I
My girl. It's my
she just
girl.
I know, like just so amazing. Remember when she helped choreograph for my Sweet 16?
Yes. she she
She
was
was at
always
that rehearsal like, look, this is what it's going to
this is
be.
what it needs to be, and let me see how you're gonna walk. She was always she's like, how you gonna walk down? No, you gotta be smooth, bro. Like I
Oh
am
man.
so grateful that I was raised by her and that I have the memories. And she, was heavily involved in the arts too. So it just kind of it keeps me connected to her while I do my everyday life, which is crazy.
I know you can't see him, but it's okay. I don't know if you see the lights. I'm like, oh god, here we go. But
Oh,
I'm just tearing up, like, oh man,
I miss
yes,
her.
like, yeah,
Mhm.
man, like, just such an amazing soul, amazing person.
Yeah.
Um, Now I want you to talk about because you talked a little bit about your fitness journey. So before we wrap up with the interview, but your fitness journey, like challenges in terms of like you're
Mhm.
going against the grain of what a dancer body, especially as a man,
Yeah.
is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
and how it's also inspired others, and also what has it done for you,
Uh,
like
well,
yourself?
I'll say, as I said earlier, it's kind of become a lifestyle for me. It definitely is something that grounds me and kind of holds me accountable. It allows me to apply what I do in the gym to my everyday life, kind of seeing things as like just breathe through it. But it started because I was self-conscious. I feel like most people, at least for the most part, the people that I know, at least in my industry, they want to feel confident. They want to look good. And in my first job, which was Lion King, you saw me in that show too.
Mm-hmm.
There, we don't wear no clothes. I wasn't. We don't wear no clothes. I had like a crop top and all these things, and I'm feeling self conscious because again we're doing an 8 show a week schedule. So I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be putting on this stuff, and I don't feel comfortable because then you're gonna see it in my performance. And so
Mm-hmm.
it took me about a year to get acclimated to doing the show, and then I started my fitness journey. I was just going and doing the same thing over and over again. Like I would go and do a little chest press, a little chest fly, maybe some leg press machine, and I would leave, and then I would realize, okay, my body's not quite doing, it's not looking the way I want it to look. What if I try this? And then I started to see my body develop and change over time. I guess I wanted to put on a little bit more shape because I was naturally very lean, and I wanted a little bit more shape. But then again, with it becoming my lifestyle, then my body, the way that my body responded to being consistently in the gym was a shock to me just as much as it was to everybody else, especially
Yes,
people who
because
know
my
me.
boy is ripped. Okay.
Especially because like we
Right.
grew up together. I was a smaller frame, and so it was amazing to see like, oh, I if I buckle down and learn that if I eat a certain thing or if I take a certain supplement and prioritize the time that I go to the gym and the rest and all that stuff, my body can actually change. And I think you've seen that firsthand. But in the industry, I also know that it's a little rare to see dancers that are tall and have a more of a action figure type physique. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, in the ensemble, the guys are usually shorter, maybe between like 5'8", 5'5", 6", between 6 feet, right, is usually what they would do for ensembles. But I feel like that's changing now. I remember one of these shows, Hamilton, when I auditioned for the show. I I don't know if you know any of the cast members, but people like Lin Manuel and Leslie Odom and the other four dancers in the show were about the same height. I want to say maybe about 5'8", 5'9". And so when I auditioned, I was like, "There's no way they're gonna cast. They're not gonna cast me in this show." And then I did see the Chicago company, and it was again a shorter group. And then once I finally got the show, I remember walking in and meeting the cast, and I was like, hold on, wait, we kind of tall. And then come to find out, they were like, yeah, we wanted it to work. So we got a tall cast, we got a tall cast together. And now, so to see that and to see other dancers that I'll meet and peers of mine, friends of mine, who are like, bro, I'm in the gym now. I'm trying to get my body right. I'm like, it really is more of a thing that grounds me. But I love to see people who are now taking pride in their body and going to the gym and finding beauty in an what's the word? Uh, Help me out. What's the word? I'm trying to think.
Beauty in what something that's
That is
something
a
that's
little
unconventional, or what are you trying to say?
unconventional. Exactly, the unideal body type for a male
Mm-hmm.
dancer, right? I
Mm-hmm.
love that, and to see that it's something that people respect me
Mm-hmm.
for also means a lot more to me.
Now this is, I just thought of this question. We got two more questions, but because I
Okay.
thought about this as you were talking, what would you say to somebody? Because I can only imagine somebody listening and they're like, "This man does 8 shows a day. He's a dancer. That's already working out. Why does he go to the gym?" Now
If I
I'll let
did,
you say he doesn't do cardio when he goes to the gym. He does all weights.
my life is cardio.
Um, right, literally your life is cardio. So, but what would you, because I that's a whole nother podcast episode about how we view the gym and weight and whatever. But what would you
Is
say like somebody asking, because I wonder, somebody probably thinking, why are you going to the gym? He already work out.
Yeah, literally. And it's funny because even people that I go to that I see at the gym who have incredible physiques, they're like, wait, you say you got a show tonight? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and you doing legs right now? It again is something that grounds me, and I don't. It holds me accountable in a way that I just need. I just need that. Just for myself, it's a way that I get to show up for myself, and it's
Mm,
nice. It's nice to see the benefits of taking time for yourself. It really
yes.
does. Like, it means the world to me. Even if I go there and now I'm at a space where I don't have to do too much. I'm not one of those guys who's like, I'm gonna squat 5,000 pounds and then try and do a show. I'm not doing that. I'm just doing what makes me feel good, what gives my body some juice, so that I can fuel up and do what I need to do outside. Um, it feels good to show up for myself and see results. Still,
Hmm.
yeah.
And it's important for people to also realize that, not just in terms of, because most people associate working out with like weight loss, but it's like even in terms of, we're talking about heart health. We're talking about as we age, like we want to be able to do things like
I still
bend
want to
over
move.
and
Right.
right,
I still want to move.
like strength training. I just had weightlifting today, and it's like it's good for being able to function like as you
Whoa.
age. If we're not doing certain things like right now, or taking care of our bodies right now, it's going to show up later in life. And like
Yes.
I always say that I don't want to be one of those older people who
Mm,
are stationary.
right.
So I realize I cannot predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen, but
Right.
I I I do know that what we do now is going to dictate and determine what will how we'll show up in our 60s, in our 70s, in our 80s.
Yay. Absolutely.
So, like, and I see all the time, I'm always inspired when I see like people who are like 70, 80, 90 on social media, and they
Wow.
still be working
And
out,
look and
running.
killing it.
Right.
Killing it. Better than people who are in their 20s,
Yes.
in better shape than that. And that is so true. It's more beneficial than just like, oh, I feel good, I look good, I'm showing up for myself, but I'm also showing up for myself and my future self, which is
Right.
huge, which is huge. Yeah.
So before you go, we got to ask this wonderful last question. And we like to, in just in terms of like on a high note, if you will,
Hmm.
for encouragement for aspiring artists, or people who may
Mm,
be earlier in their career, in terms of someone who is pursuing a dream. That can be in theater, that can be in entertainment, or that can be any goal, starting a business, anything
I
that
see.
seems far-fetched.
Mm,
what would
lovely.
you what would you tell them or say to
I
them?
would say a few things, but one definitely would be that the work doesn't stop. I think sometimes people think, oh gosh, once I achieve this job or reach this goal,
Mm,
like that's it. Mm-mm. There's so much of this industry in life that is unpredictable and that is out of your control. And you still have to manage. You have to manage your disappointments. You have to manage you saying, I need a minute. You have to know when enough is enough. You have
mm-hmm.
to also you're I feel like we're constantly redefining ourselves too, but I would say that the work doesn't stop and it doesn't always what is glitter, just because it glitters does not mean that it's gold. And so you may be a part of an industry going into this industry where it doesn't look the way you thought it would look. You're thinking that, oh, I'm going to get there. It's going to be sunshine and rainbows. Baby, you got to advocate for yourself in many ways. You have to there are so many things that you have to learn, right, when you're doing that. So just because you get the job does not mean all your worries are going to go away. Just because you get the opportunity does not mean that the doubts leave. You still have to do the work, so the work doesn't stop. You got to remember that.
I'm not gonna even say nothing to that, to that, because you already, you put the, you said it, friend. So
Hey, let's go.
definitely want to just thank you for squeezing me into your very busy schedule.
Of course, I got you,
and
friend.
and just, being amazing, being supportive. I'm so blessed and fortunate to just have you in my life. And of course, I
Ditto.
love you, friend.
I love you too. Ditto. Ditto. That love is mutual.
As people with lived experience, Jordan and I know firsthand what it's like to have suicidal thoughts. But this is not an isolated experience. Sadly, suicide rates among Black communities are rising. But together, we can make a difference. Your support helps us to provide crucial resources and create change. Donate today by texting Stop Suicide to 53555. Your contribution, it empowers our mission and supports those in need. Thank you for your continued support of our organization and podcast. Together, we can bring hope and healing. Thank you so much to my amazing friend Raymond. I love that man so much. He's amazing. I want to encourage y'all to make sure that you follow him on social media. I'll be sure to leave his handles for TikTok and Instagram. He posts amazing content, and even just go see him in the show. Like, he is great. So I'll also be sure to include a link to if you're interested in seeing him perform on Broadway. So for our spotlight segment, we highlight someone who has died by suicide, and the goal, or the purpose rather, of this segment is to continue to shine light on the Black people dying by suicide and the increase that is happening within the Black community. And so we want to uh, give this spotlight to Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Jovan Belcher, who died by suicide on December 1st, 2012. For our resource segment, we are highlighting actually well-being in entertainment and creative arts. WECA is the acronym that they go by, and they envision an entertainment industry guided by trauma-informed principles by which the health, safety, and well-being of artists and entertainment workers are prioritized through the entire creative process from pre to post-production. So I'll be sure to leave there. They do a lot of trainings and offer a lot of resources for entertainers, but not just people on stage in the spotlight, people also behind the scenes as well. So I'll be sure to leave their website so you can check them out, or share it with somebody who you know that is in the entertainment industry and can use the resources that they offer. For our change maker segment, this is a segment where we spotlight amazing people who are doing great work. It can be a mental health um, professional. It could be a mental health advocate. It could be an influencer. It could be a therapist. It could be a peer support specialist. Anybody who is doing great work to push Black mental health forward. And so for this community change maker, we are spotlighting Grammy winning singer and songwriter Michelle Williams from the group Destiny's Child. She's been advocating for mental health, and she also has a podcast called Checking In with Michelle. She has been sharing her journey about depression and prioritizing mental health in her memoir, which is called Checking In: How Getting Real About Depression Saved My Life and Can Save Yours. I read the book. It was a pretty great read. And she also opens up about suicidal thoughts and the importance of faith, family, and friends, and the lessons that she learned as it relates to prioritizing her mental health. So also be sure to check the description box so that you can actually get the link to her book as well. So I would encourage you. For me, it's really good to read and hear stories of people who have overcome, but also still doing things daily to manage their mental health, because a lot of us, it's a lifelong battle. For some people, it may just be a season, but Michelle Williams has done a great job at sharing her story, which really helps to dismantle the mental health stigma. For self-care, y'all, what am I doing? As if I knew this part was going to come, right? I'm like, what have I been doing for self-care? Honestly, y'all, I've been getting back on track with my sleep schedule because I had fell off. I was staying up late. I was working through the weekends, and I was just, y'all, work, 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 work. Like Rihanna, like I was, my sleep it was either I wasn't sleeping as much, or when I was sleeping, it wasn't restful. So I've actually been getting back on track, and I'm currently actually, for the past about week, I've been sticking to my bedtime, going to bed, waking up, because for me, it's important that I go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time every morning. I notice a huge difference in my mental health when I have a sleep routine. We should definitely have I know we say we should, but I think it'll be important if we actually have an episode on sleep hygiene, because I think that is something that we don't talk about often, and how sleep hygiene really does impact our mental health. So that's really what my focus has been on: sleep hygiene, but then also just resting, having moments to do nothing is what I've also been doing for self-care. Because y'all, when I say I work a lot, I work so much, sometimes anywhere between 60 to 80 hours in a week. And so I have to make sure that I'm having moments to just do nothing. So that's what I've been doing for self-care. And for as far as I jumped ahead, y'all. Y'all know what I forgot to share? I forgot to do the oh my God segment. So if you're new here, this our oh my God or OMG segment is where we share the off the wall things that people have said to us, or that we have heard. So for today, we're talking about, they say, people, you have heard people say they had all that money, why would they kill themselves? As if somehow, while money does solve a lot of problems, it can't solve every problem. Like what Biggie say, the more money, the more problems. Like, that's not the end all be all. So when you're talking about people in the entertainment industry, people doing well financially, as if but that's not the case. In some instances, I think I mentioned on the previous episode that sometimes money can exacerbate some of the problems that we are already having. Sometimes we're using money to fill voids in our lives, and that just doesn't work. And so we really have to stop associating with having a lot of money with a lack of problems and a lack of mental health challenges. And so for our moment of inspiration is a quote that I wrote, and I'm hoping that this inspires someone who's listening, whether you're in the entertainment industry or not. But just getting us to think about the pressures and the stressors that people in the entertainment industry face. In a world of entertainment where the spotlight often shines brightest on your triumphs, it's crucial to remember that your struggles are just as real. Let's continue to break the stigma, support one another, and prioritize mental health. Together, we can create a more compassionate and understanding industry. Remember, you are not alone, and seeking help is a sign of strength. Thank you so much for listening to a solo episode with your girl, T-Kea. Jordan and I, we appreciate the continued support, and for continuing to show up for us. We do this because we love the podcast. We love meeting people. We love interviewing people. And we're hoping that what we're doing is continuing to provide a free resource for you all, and helping for people to know that they're less alone. So you all have a fantastic, whether you're listening to this on the weekend, have a fantastic weekend, night, day, etc. Always sending y'all positive vibes and love and light. And again, thank you so much for supporting Black People Die by Suicide too.